We are live. All right.
And we're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Musty Wargamer Show.
Huzzah! Quiet, new
And
guy.
tonight we have special guests. We have Fritz.
How you doing, folks?
Hey, Curtis. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad.
Fantastic.
And we got our other co-host tonight, Palmer, live from cold Canada.
That's right. As opposed to the warm Canada.
That's the east side. They're warm.
Cold Calgary.
Yeah, we're warm tonight. We're a balmy 0 Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. Exactly.
Wow.
I checked before I came downstairs. So if we were in Canada, we have no temperature. It's 0. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good, actually. I actually had a couple of weeks of everybody in the house at one point getting sick and getting better and getting sick again. And then when one person gets better, the other one gets sick. And it's like, oh my gosh. That's myself included. So I did that big painting video where I was talking about my New Year's resolution, all this stuff I'm going to do. And then immediately I felt like I was failing because all I wanted to do is sleep.
Yeah, it's like we got Clark in tonight. We have
Hello, Clark.
It's like we've been pretty lucky around the house around here, not getting sick. I think I had maybe a quick run in because I get the flu shot every year. So for one day I felt kind of like, oh, I feel really funky. It's like this feels like the flu, but it just didn't grab, Mm-hmm. It's like it tried to attack, but it's like, oh, too many antibodies, can't go get anywhere here. Moving on. But we've had a lot of snow around here in cold weather. We just had over the last weekend, we had our 8-10 inches of snow. Then we had the sub-zero temperatures. So
cold for you guys, but maybe not this time of the year.
Yeah. Well, typically we get down to the sub-zero temperatures we get a couple days here and there. It usually goes through you before it gets to us. So we got Plastic Crack Gaming's in here.
I was just talking to him.
Yeah. Came over we got Smitty's in here. We got Heresy Productions in here for somehow. Where'd he come from?
Corrects 26, the GM's alcove. This chat room is filled with people.
Yeah. And half of them are on the screen.
I'm just going to say, God help us.
All right. So what have you been up to, Curtis? Since you're the special guest, we'll put you on the spot first.
You will. Painting. I'm doing a lot of painting. Of course, I do my paint-alongs on my channel, and they're extra long recently. I hope to continue that trend into the coming months. 6-hour sessions, folks, getting things done. That's what it's all about. So yeah, painting up some 10 mil Saxons, some 15 mil World War II British Airborne by Peter Pig, some 10 mil Pendraken Greek Cavalry, and I got some Old Glory 15 millimeter Württemberger Light Dragoons that I'm going to be working on next week, I think.
Those Napoleonics?
Napoleonics.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, I had a question. Do you prefer painting 10 millimeter or 15 mil?
Neither. I hate them both. I like 28s.
Yeah.
No, I love all the ones I do. I love 10 because they're interesting. They're easy to paint, relatively speaking. 15s can be really beautiful and they could be really challenging because sometimes the casts aren't that great. 28s are just a dream normally. It always comes down to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
There's 10s that are just wonderful to work with because they're great sculpts, and there's 28s that are just a tragedy to look at because they're not cast well, they're disproportioned, and they're hard to work with. I've had both. And it depends on the manufacturer, really. But I prefer 28s.
Yeah, that's what with the 28s I kind of come across is, I've been finished up those Warlord Games ones, and it kind of left me like, there's just not enough detail, you know, for what you would expect on a 28. But
some of the 15s that I don't have a lot of experience with 15s, but I did buy some for fantasy, and I'll tell you, some of them are really nice. Like I wasn't sure, you know, but when I got them, I was the level of detail and like some of the stuff they can do with 15s is quite amazing.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, the 15 millimeter Peter Pigs, I've never worked with them before. Had a lot of people comment how wonderful they are. I finally got the chance to work with these little gems. They are beautiful sculpts, beautiful facial details on the models. They're well proportioned. They're the bigger 15s, so more like 18.
yeah,
really wonderful to work with those models. And that's the one thing I love about what I do, is that I get a chance to explore all these different scales and manufacturers and paint them, you know, for people. It's really wonderful to do that. And Peter Pigs, highly recommended, folks.
yeah, they had some good stuff. I've painted some of their some Napoleonics before. There's some American War of Independence stuff too. They got a little bit of everything out there, so that you can throw into the mix. It's kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you been up to?
What musty flavor do you have in the pipe tonight there? You know, we have to introduce our musty drink. You can tell us what flavor you have in your vape there. What flavor is it tonight?
This is Bavarian cream with a slight hint of strawberry.
There you go.
It's good. It's really good, folks. I love it.
Yep.
There, that's my drink for the night.
That's right. That's your musty drink. Well, for myself, I'm going to be putting a video up probably tomorrow on this, but I think I will do an exclusive early release of what I've been working on, which isn't nearly
in the pipeline.
Not nearly as much as what you guys do as far as quantity. But I have my artillery. Now, half of it will really like this part over was totally painted, but this stuff I redid pretty much. I put them on bases, I repainted them because I kind of had them all red, just almost as if they were in their waistcoats, not with overcoats. And so, so I have my artillery officer, and then I have 2 crews and 2 cannon. These are French, I guess they're French 4-pounders. Finally got these guys done. Sort of breaking the seal of my historical painting after the new year, and now I'll be going on to a big block of French regulars. I think I have, probably like 35 or so 28 millimeter French regulars with 2 officers on horseback and command and stuff. And so that'll take me a while to get through, most likely. So yeah, I'm actually really like this guy. I really love this officer. I just never had, like a specific officer for artillery. And so and he's got like a little walking stick. I just love that particular miniature. So it was really fun to paint. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's mainly, I've mainly just been like working on my other big block, cleaning them up, and I still have like stuff to do on them to get them started. And then for my musty drink, what I have tonight is
a big bottle of Woodford Reserve.
Yeah, my Woodford Reserve. This is the Costco bottle of, and it literally, I got this at Costco, so it's actually quite huge.
Tank it on the side. Ding, ding, ding.
And so I have this. This is not new. I love Woodford Reserve. That's the only reason I'd ever buy that much. And so that's what I've got tonight. And I'm keeping the big bottle there because I heard you guys are talking about BattleTech. And so, it's become a bit of a tradition that I need to get and have another drink every time it's brought up.
Mentioned BattleTech, take a shot.
The last show, I was like having the spins.
Yeah, let's see.
How about yourself, Rusty?
All right, over here. Now, let's see. I got. Now, if you watch the video I put out yesterday, you would have seen these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I got my.
Look at that.
Yeah.
my command stand with a map.
Very cool.
And then I got some BattleTech miniatures.
Of course.
Is that some Hessian robotic support?
Yep. Along with
Coins.
corn. I took a far change because I was, after so many days of painting historicals, I needed something totally different. So I broke these guys out. They've been sitting on the primed and, about 50% painted up. And I was like, oh, I want something totally different. So I went with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they should get the job done.
Nice.
Adam, so now I got, what was it? 9 of them, I think, all together now. For all the different corn blood crushers. So I got a nice big unit of them now. And my musty drink of the night is Glenmorangie.
Nice.
10-year-old. I picked a couple boxes of this up the other night. I guess it's been about a week ago. They had them for a bottle for $30.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a gift pack left over from Christmas type thing. So it was you had one big bottle and you had some sample bottles, the smaller bottles inside it. And so it was like a gift box for $30. And I was like, yes, please, I'll take that. And my wife said, why do you have 2 of them? Because they're $30. It's like almost like BOGO. Buy one, get one free type of deal. So it's like normally are like $45, $50 a bottle. And it's like, hey, I'm buying 2. So, and that's pretty much it over for me. So, cheers, mate.
Cool. Yes, cheers. Yeah, it's funny. I just kind of on topic since you just brought up corn. I was I was thinking about actually getting some of the old Chaos Renegades for the Old Hammer ones that are corn. Like they had the Chaos Renegades, the really old, like the first Chaos sort of Marines. And some of them were more styled for corn, some for more for Zinch, like Slaanesh, Nurgle. And I was thinking about putting together a little corn troop, of the old ones. But then I kind of reminded myself, I got a big sizable list, of Old Hammer, Thousand Suns and Zinch, models to do. So I'll be doing that in a challenge pretty soon. So I was talking to Jankmaster or Rob, who oftentimes comments on the channel, and I told him recently, I don't even think I could look at that or even think about purchasing that stuff until I beat what I have.
Yeah. Well, we had a couple questions I guess it goes out to me. Is have I bought the updated? You must be talking about the new rule book that came out, I think last year, I think it was last June or so. Is that the one you're talking about? Everybody in the group that, we're planning on having a BattleTech game in 2 weeks from now. So everybody has it. I don't have it. I haven't thought about buying it yet. So
is it very different?
It's kind of dumbed down. It's, it's got the very basic. It doesn't have any extra rules in it. It's just, kind of like the rules you'd have in the main box set.
Pretty much the direction that everything goes lately.
Yeah. I looked at it and go, okay, this seems like a step backwards for me. It's like, yeah, okay. I don't necessarily need it. So
you can still, is the Total Warfare, the big hardcover that was being used before, that obsolete now, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's just that it's the simplest. We used it at Gen Con this year, the simple rules, and it's like, okay, a lot of people have it because it's in the new box set or something like that. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But there's a lot of extra rules that you can get into, type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Clark here. It says, speaking of Battletech, I've been painting and putting together a bunch of my stuff for the new year. All right. Got laid off at the beginning of the year. That sucks. I've been painting between looking for a new job. Yeah, that's the fun part. It's like you got plenty of time to paint and hobby, but you don't want that free time that you extra stuff that you got. So, okay.
Right?
What's that?
Something to do to enjoy, which is good.
Yeah, that passes the time when you're not on picking up an unemployment check. Well, Matt, we got Ryan coming there. We got
Ryan.
All right. Okay, we got we have the one with the Atlas on the front. I think it is the one that has, I think, a Marauder on it too, isn't there? And I thought I'd be getting some Battletech this year, but not sure I'll be. Yeah, depends on logistics.
What's HBS mean? HBS, downloadable content on Steam. HBS, what is that?
Harebrained Schemes.
Oh, duh. Okay.
Yeah, that's I've cracked the 1,000 hour mark playing that game.
Yeah.
So, and it'll be 2 years. I think April is when it came out 2 years ago. This coming April will be 2 years, and that amount of time I played over 1,000 hours of game time. So I sort of played a few hours of it. Kind of whittled away a bit of my life. And let's see, okay, what we got? Catching up here. Not the one with the main box set, the new Total Warfare book. Well, it's the same book. It just has all the extras been updated with all they got the FAQs in there, like you said, that all the errata has been updated. So no, I have not bought the newest one. There's not much in there. Huh?
What are you doing? What's going on? You didn't buy it?
I don't feel like spending $50-$60 on a book that is 90. That's already 95%, 99% correct already. So, it's like there's not that much that I have to worry about too much. It's just that it says little bitty EDB rules that are just slightly wrong. That with an errata in there, it's like
you can sense a ripple in the force of BattleTech.
No, I don't worry about it. Okay, and then we got thinking about buying the Harebrained Schemes, Chinese New Year schemes. Yes. It's like if you got all the new downloadable content yet? It's like I got all of them, so it's like I've been up to date with everything. So the one with the Marauders, the new mech manual. It's really a mech on mech combat. It's if you want to do combined arms or anything of that nature, you don't need anything else. So Total War is combined arms. Oh, we're up to date with all the questions.
All right. So first topic is with you.
Yes, we got the first topic of the night, and it is we have purchasing terrain, going to the store, you got the resin stuff, etc. that comes in, and you just have to clean it up and then paint it yourself. Some stuff, you got the that you can buy that's already pre-painted for you. There's a bunch of companies out there that have pre-painted stuff versus making your own, doing the handicrafty stuff where you sit down and go, I'm going to break out the popsicle sticks and the toothpicks and all the other fun stuff and the foam core board and make my own. So what is the pros and cons? What do you think? Who wants to start?
Age before beauty. Who's older?
I'm sorry, it's probably me.
I'm just kidding. I'm happy to give a crack at it.
All right.
So, and also, I was kind of thinking about this, and there's also, I'll start with the way I would have answered this before I got a 3D printer, and then that added effect, which I think adds a little bit, and that is, I definitely do both. One of the things I noticed, I know you can make your own terrain that's durable. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I did notice that because when you buy terrain from someone else, oftentimes, particularly plastic, resin, those kinds of terrains, they're kind of made to last, so it doesn't fall apart by the time it gets in your hands. And they know that you're using it for wargaming, if that's the purpose, you know, if you're buying a wargame terrain piece. So oftentimes it's very durable. And so I like that aspect. I like something that looks decent, that's really durable on the table, that doesn't break on me, or that doesn't wear really easily, fall apart, get damaged, constantly have to be repaired. So from that perspective, if I can find something that I can purchase that is really durable, works well on the table, I think it's a good deal. You know, I don't think that's bad. Having said that, most of the time, depending on how much time you want to spend on making terrain, you can oftentimes easily exceed individually the level of detail, kind of visual detail, than store-bought terrain. If you just put your mind to it. I mean, like you can usually, using techniques that they use in the railroading hobby and lots of things, you can exceed oftentimes purchased terrain's detail as a hobbyist. Granted, it'll take you a long time. I mean, it's part of the hobby, but you can exceed that. But a lot of times, like what I was saying before, is that the stuff that I've made where I've tried to make it more durable, a lot of times it requires a lot more maintenance. When I bring it out for gaming, at times I have to, it's not just putting flock on. Like sometimes if it's plaster and it's painted over, I might ding it and I've got white spots, like, you know, where I've dinged plaster, you know, things like that. And so as I can, the more time I spend on something, sometimes the less realistic it is for it to be playable, and the more it's like a diorama. And so there's like that balance. And so I find oftentimes store-bought terrain achieves that balance right away. I can make really good stuff and try to make it somewhere in between, and I will do that at times. So I would say I do a little bit of both. Lately, I've been also buying stuff that I make, and that is, I will actually buy like a STL file and then print something on my printer. So it's kind of like in between store-bought and purchased and made, because sometimes it's not as durable because maybe it's a type of plastic that I'm using that might not be as durable as, let's say, a solid resin, or it may not be, the quality level may not be the same as injected molded, you know, stuff in certain instances, but it's somewhere kind of in between where I could do it at home. I'm purchasing it, and it kind of has characteristics of both, I would say. So that's kind of my initial thoughts, is that I like to do both, and I think both have their place. And you can get, each has their own strengths in some ways.
Yeah, I can see. You know, it's like for me, it's like I've done both, where, you know, broke out the old hobby knife and you start creating your own buildings, your terrain, etc. You know, sky's the limit type of thing. It's, if you're inclined to do such things, it's one of those things where back in the day, when we first started into the hobby, you know, and the money was a little short, and it's like, okay, I can go to the terrain shop, pick up some materials and just make my own, because that was the cheapest thing to do. Because at the time, you know, the price of stuff that's made hasn't really changed that much. Not to mention that a lot of it was plaster Paris back in the day.
Yeah.
And it would literally come apart pretty quickly, you know, wear out, versus if you, etc., put kind of stuff, make your own buildings, you know, that type of deal. And nowadays, like you said, you have right behind you there, you got your 3D printer where you can still, you're hobbying, you can create your own materials, using your own materials and making you're still doing a hobby type of deal, creating your own stuff, versus, you know, recently, I think, I guess it was it last summer when I had last time I had all the buildings and stuff I made. I purchased a whole bunch of resin. There were plastic resin and, you know, type of buildings that were pretty durable. Except a couple of them were resin. I had 2 resin buildings, and the other ones were plastic resin. So those were really durable. glued them together. So it was one of those things where they weren't too expensive. I think that one of the resin buildings that I bought probably equaled the same cost I had with the other 6 plastic resin ones that I had bought. So it's one of those give and take type of deal. And for the same price of the one resin building, how much material can you buy to make your own?
So what does Beauty have to say? What does Beauty have to say?
Beauty and the Beast.
I don't know. For me, I have a thing for making my own terrain. I always have made a business out of it. I mean, before I was painting miniatures for a living, I was making terrain for a living for a while because I enjoy it. I think a big part of the hobby for me has always been crafting, making your own stuff. Because back in the day, that's what you had to. Not that I'm ancient, but that's what we had to do. If you could find stuff produced, like buildings typically, they were expensive, and you wanted to spend your money on figures and rules. You don't want to spend it on, God, I got to buy trees and all this other stuff, which you have to do anyway, I think. But nowadays, I still do that. I love making my own stuff. It's just part of the hobby. Bridges, maybe some buildings. I could knock out a 15 millimeter village in a weekend out of card and templates, but some things I buy, like trees, because you need a lot of them, and the more the merrier when it comes to trees. Buildings, oftentimes I also buy because it's just too much work to have removable roofs and stuff. And I like to buy some of that stuff. So for me, terrain, particularly buildings, it's kind of like I'll buy them, but it's mostly to supplement what I already create. Yeah, because I enjoy making my stuff. It's part of the hobby for me. Just like painting figures is. It's part of the whole thing. It's fun. Whether one is better than the other, I don't know. Today's hobby world, it's spawned industries for all kinds of things like textured paints and all kinds of paints, and terrain is no exception. There's people making terrain buildings of all kinds of shapes and sizes and scales, made of everything, and it's a good thing. I just still like to make my own stuff and what's the word? Customize things. And that's something you can't really do unless you're printing, is customized terrain built for like, hey, I'm going to play the Battle of Borodino and we're going to do the readouts, the assault and the readouts. And you've got all these maps and technical maps of what they look like, and you could do it yourself. That's fun. It's part of the hobby for me. Yeah. I like that. As opposed to just going out and buying it, painting it, throw it down. That's just the way I view it and the way I handle it. And
it's like yesterday. I haven't seen Mel come in here, Striker. Yesterday he was working on some 15 mil split rail fences, for his Civil War. Because he was retouching up some of his Civil War miniatures, because we're thinking about getting a few games in and stuff, possibly of that. And it's like, oh yeah, it's like I got some, he was showing me, sending me pictures of what he was making, and I was like, oh yeah, it's like. And I sent some pictures of what I had made. I had some split rail fences that I made. And I went to town on them, just like with all the little growth on them and all that stuff. Just like, okay. And I put some thought into it. It's like, okay, I can make them really small for 15 mil split rail fences, so they're to scale to a 15 mil miniature, or can they just be representative? And I was kind of went in between. I made them 20 mil versus the 28s or the 15s, so they can be used in either scale, all three scales type of thing.
Right.
And so you can put a lot of thought into it if you want to. If you spend some time building these things, that's part of the hobby aspect of it. It's like way back in the day, we didn't have a lot of times it was plaster Paris type of deal, or some of it was resin. That but it was still, it's like, geez, I could, like you said, Curtis, I can spend buy a whole bunch of terrain myself that's already pre-made. I just have to paint it for the same price of building like 2-3 different units type of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to go that route or not? Now, if it's one of those times, and it's got to the point eventually where it's like, geez, I have all the units I really need for these campaigns that we were playing, say Civil War or her Napoleonics, and you go, well, maybe I can start finagling some of that money I thought about throwing into miniatures. Maybe you can start buying some kind of upgraded type terrain, to throw into the mix every once in a while type of deal.
Here's a question. When you do buy terrain, whatever it is, how much effort do you put into, say, customizing it a little bit, like putting moss on the fences, just adding little bits and bobs, putting it on a nice base? How far do you go with that aspect when you buy a piece of terrain? Do you go that far?
I like to put in sometimes put a hedge around it, or if you go back, I guess it's been about 4 years ago, maybe it's 4 years ago. The last time I did it was for 15 mil Battle of Waterloo. I put in orchards and stuff like that. It's like it was Saint. That whole setup. It's like I put that in. It's like, it needs more. I put in an orchard. I put the little apples and stuff on it. So you just start going to town on it. It's like it suddenly you realize you're getting out of hand.
That's kind of similar to what I was going to kind of say too. Before I answer that, Curtis, it's just you can buy MDF buildings that are bare bones. I mean, like they're basically slats, rectangular slats with a window and a door that you put together, and you have to do a lot to it. Like, in most cases, that like it's not being made for you to just be ready to use. Like it's being made to give you the foundation to start with. And so you can buy something like that, and it can be relatively inexpensive. And then in some cases, you can buy something like foreground, where the intention is that when you put this together, you can put it right on the table. You don't have to paint it. In many cases, it's already got their form of paint on it, and it looks good. For I think they look like nice buildings. I have some for World War II. I've gotten some of that stuff, and it's kind of pricey, but it's also, if you think about the time you save in painting it and the quality of it, it's actually pretty good. However, some of my favorite stuff is the Gale Force 9 Battlefield in a Box stuff. Yes. I really like that. It's very durable, and it comes to you pretty good. But like you said, Curtis, like the rivers are what I'm thinking of, and the rivers, I spent a fair amount of time touching those up. Like I spent a fair amount of time with washes, with dry brushing, with putting extra grass and other things on it, and they actually come out really fantastic when you give them a little more love. They really jump out and are even much better. They're usable right out of the box, and they even give you some grass that you can put on, some flock, but you can actually make them quite a bit better just by spending a little time on them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just my brother, he has a whole bunch of the Gale Force 9 sci-fi terrain, like all kinds of the cathedrals and all that stuff that could be used for 40K. And he could fill out an entire table with he bought just tons of the stuff so he could play 40K. And it was like at the time, he's like, I don't have time to make all this stuff myself, but he's like, I got a great job where I got tons of money, but no time. So I'm just going to buy it, and that's the one nice thing about Gale Force 9's aspect of it. It's like you get the money and you don't have the time. Well, you can buy there's another company out there that has pre-painted terrain that's even fantasy and historical and sci-fi. I see them all the time at like Gen Con and Origins.
Dwarven Forge, or
what's that?
Dwarven Forge, is that the one of them, or?
No, it's historical something as part of the name. Is part of the name that they have. One of the guys here might know it, but they have it comes with cost you pretty penny, obviously, because it's already pre-painted for you, but it's nice looking stuff. if an individual doesn't have any crafting skills at all, and it's like you look at an X-Acto knife and you cut your fingers type of deal. So I can understand why some people might go that route.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for us, we're probably in the camp where we're more than happy to pick up the X-Acto knife and just start going to town making our materials. It's like if you have a battle that you want to play, let's say you want to let's say battle Long Island for that, or battle Monmouth Courthouse or something like that for American War of Independence. You look at it, you got a good idea what's all there, and it's like, oh, I need a courthouse. It's like, if I don't want to spend the money and buy one, I can, foam core it, put everything together. And it's like Dan Booman, if you watch some of his videos where he went and he bought like there's PDF printout where you can print out the texture, like the outside of a building and everything. Yeah. And it's just printed out, and he glued it on foam core. And then after he's all done, and the X-Acto knifed everything out, and it looks pretty good. It's like, you swear it was like actually painted resin material from a distance. So that is something, even with that, you can, turn it into a hobby and make it halfway decent looking.
Some of the papercraft stuff does look nice.
Yeah. And I asked like a million questions of him one night, and I was like, well, what'd you get this? How'd you do that? It's like asking questions constantly of him. It's like, what was happening with it? And it was like, yeah, it's like I could see myself buying those programs and then just print them out and then get a nice sharp X-Acto knife and then cut them out and glue them onto some foam core and make some nice buildings and stuff. So the sky's kind of the limit if you're willing to take the time and effort. And that's part of it. You got to take the time and effort. It's like any skill too. You have to learn how to do it. Yeah. And it's the same as like if you could buy we got Todd in, and we got a lot of resin buildings you could buy. They're unpainted, so you got to paint them yourself. So
yeah. That's right. And even with the 3D printing stuff, you're still painting in most cases.
Yeah. So unless you here in the next 5 years, we get the colored 3D printers are just as cheap on the market. So
true. I still think it'll be a long time before they'll come to you like printed, but with shading. Yeah. Like right now it looks like Gumby's Village, right? Like it's sort of really like I can make 3 colors,
They are saying though that with the 3D printed color stuff that they have the capability of getting over 1 million colors now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But when they
it's like inkjet colored paint.
Oh, so it's not because I can actually do it where I can run a spool of a certain color and stop the print and switch the spool, and it'll actually print another color. Like it's a lot of manual stuff. I wouldn't do that personally. But what you're talking about is that you actually can create like a whole spectrum of colors.
Yes,
that'd be pretty impressive.
It's from what I've seen, it's kind of like inkjet printing. It's like it's going from dot matrix, like what you have is like considered like dot matrix type deal, to the inkjet, where it's like they combining the colors into the jet and then printed it on the paper. So
mine's like a printing press compared to that. Yeah. Like, like put in the metal plates in, So yeah. Well, it looks like you've got another number of people join us and jump in.
Yeah, we got Todd joined us. Yeah, he said I didn't get here in time. Beginning. Yeah, you didn't miss anything. Just us being idiots. So. You missed the introduction of our alcohol. That's what you missed.
If you missed that, I'll just do a flyby. Just kind of.
Yes. The reintroduction of the alcohol. Oh, there you go.
Palmer's 50 gallons.
That's right.
I only buy he buys it by the gallon.
Frisky whiskey.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
I want a hat. I like a hat that could hold this. Could you imagine
that? He's got a 10-gallon whiskey hat, but it just runs off our heads. Yeah, it's so any other comments, Curtis, on the subject?
Just that it's a big part of my hobby. It's part of the whole thing, the crafting part. Be honest, I'm not a big fan of pre-made stuff. I'm really not. I just love the idea of making my own terrain and customizing it, and it just personalizes my hobby even more.
Mhm.
And I think I do a good job. But that said, I occasionally buy some stuff, and the printout stuff that you're talking about, Rusty, the paper walls and textured ceilings and all that, and you just put them on card or put them on foam core, and they look the part. They're really good. You just put them on a base, add some flock or whatever, and personalize them. That's the extent of it for me. That's what I do, and I like doing it. So that's my take on it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, that's to me. I look at it, it's part of the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, get go.
Yep.
It's even when it comes to like customizing miniatures, we could throw that in there for part of it too. Or individuals always want to tinker stuff. They want to get their hands, the tactile feel of building. It's like any type of any one of us monkeys with a hammer eventually will create the Sistine Chapel type thing. So.
Mr. Pre-made, please. Yeah.
And there are times where over the years, it's like I've just hemmed and hawed. I look at something, oh, that looks really cool. Man, that'd look really good on the table. And then you're like, but do I want to spend the money on that? It's like, how many different miniatures can I buy for that? Especially it's like I'd go to, when I'd be like at Gen Con, I'm seeing the big display where they got all their stuff that's already pre-painted already. The one company I was telling you about. You look at it, it's like, wow, they got a whole freaking, you could be a whole role-playing, if you're role players, like just imagine the guys running around the buildings and stuff, going from this building like that. That'd be cool. And then you think, well, one building's $100. Yeah, and I'm looking at about $3,000 worth of buildings right here.
That's why you make it yourself. That's why you make it yourself.
Yes, it's like you get sticker shock really hard. Like
Palmer, one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
One of your first battle reports that I watched, it was Muskets and Tomahawks, and this was when you were just starting to expand your collection of terrain.
Yeah.
And I remember this one battle, and it was great. It was this fantastic looking, huge mansion of a house. And it was like the centerpiece of your battlefield. And
yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
That wasn't made. You didn't make that, did you?
No, I think what you're referring to is where I used a French chateau from Bolt Action, but I used the chateau like within Musket and Tomahawks. That one. Yeah. But I did make a cabin. My first building I ever made was totally from scratch, and it was a cabin and I laid the wood floor, and I actually made the cabin completely. And I even used plaster for the chimney. Like I did the whole thing from scratch. And then, so I've done both for Musket Tomahawks. Admittedly, more of my stuff is MDF that I've actually kits that I purchased, but then that you put together and that you paint up the way you like. And then I would actually add a lot to it. I usually always use popsicle sticks and add like a wood floor inside and do lots of different stuff. But I think the one you're talking about would be the Bolt Action Chateau that I used for that. Yeah. Since then, I did do a Charlie Foxtrot. I have to have a little bit less whiskey when I try to say that. Models. American Tidewater Manor that I did, and I spent a lot of time on it, even though it's a purchased kit that you assemble, a model kit. I'd done a lot of painting on it and just trying to make the sort of the boards on the outside realistic and the shingles, painting each individual shingle and things like that. And so I've done, admittedly, that's more recent, and I've done that. I have maybe had one battle report with it in there, but I will actually have that in future battle reports for sure.
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what it comes down to, I think.
You still have your Boreal Force that you made where you had the force canopy up top and you had where the Indians could go down below?
And I was going to mention that earlier. I mean, like that's something that you can't. It's hard to buy something like that, and it's kind of like what Curtis was saying, and you were saying that I did the tree canopy where you can have a huge space on the board that's just trees, and you can lift the top off. You can have your guys go inside. You really can't buy that easily.
No,
something like that. It's very specific, and it's something you make yourself. And I did a video series on that one. I believe it's like 6 or 7 videos, on how to make a tree canopy. And so, yeah, like it's a lot of fun to make your own stuff. And a lot of times it really pays off. I mean, that's an example where you can change the nature of the game by just having a really cool kind of setup that you make yourself.
Rusty, with you playing a lot of BattleTech, not that I'm segueing into that topic yet, but playing a lot of BattleTech, what's your perspective on pre-made terrain? Because you're dealing with hexes, right? For your tabletop.
We just had a flyby.
For your tabletop, you're dealing with hexes, and the
yes
rules
and
work
no.
with hexes, and
it depends. Sometimes it depends on who I play with. It's like my brothers and their crew, they want to play nothing but hexes. Everything has to be on the hex. They refuse to play the game without hexes. Is that it's too complicated without a hex? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then my other crew that plays over here have no problems. Like, oh yeah, we can play open terrain. It's like, yeah, it's like just go to town. It's like don't even think about it. It's same way, with hexes, you feel kind of like you're locked up, and I feel like I'm hampered, but when you're the same trees that you have for your 28 mil game can be used in BattleTech. Your 6 millimeter buildings and stuff like that you have that you can use for historicals, you can use for BattleTech. Throw it all out there, and you just march around. Go around it, go over it, run through it, type thing.
As long as it fits in a hex.
And you just open it up, type of deal, where you just your mechs are still on hex bases, so you just put something next to them and turn them. It's like up. You can turn up to the full facing. That's one turn, one point of movement. So if you're a 4/6 mech, you can make 1, 2, 3. Completely turn around, type of deal.
But it doesn't play a big role in your terrain and what you do. You just fit it in the hexes. It doesn't constrain you because you're using hexes. Everything has to fit within so many hexes and in a certain way.
Yeah.
It doesn't really affect that at all.
No, it's like if you're playing a hex game, it's like something should fit into a hex or 3 hexes, or try to fit inside the hexes. That's the constraint on it. But if you're just playing an open game like your normal miniature game, it's like it's there. It's like you just go around it, type of deal, or shoot around. Have to, it's like, oh, it's blocking line of sight. Ooh, we're getting to the next topic, line of sight. So,
ta-da!
We're talking about models on the table.
Yeah, he's saying we're not talking about your actual house, Palmer.
Yeah. Yes, Palmer did he went out with popsicle sticks and built his own house out of straw and popsicle sticks.
It was really cool till the big bad wolf came.
Oh,
and there's a lot of wolves in Canada. It really sucks.
That's a whole nother topic.
Wow.
They're huff and puff, and it's like, oh, geez, it's a little cold out here. Can we not blow your house down and just move in?
I don't know if you guys remember, but that little cabin that I made that I was telling you guys about, the miniature one on the table, I actually have a picture of Athleth or Sergeant Tristan on the wall of that cabin. I actually took his thumbnail, and it shows him in his Napoleon outfit with his World War II hat on it, and I have it in an old picture frame glued on the wall in the miniature cabin for Musket and Tomahawks, and only because he got me into the game. So I kind of did that as a little tribute kind of thing, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, Bill, next time you come in, just here we got Bill. He lives in Missouri. Next time he comes through, it's like, yeah, just give me a heads up and we can kick back a few. I got plenty. I have plenty of alcohol.
All right. So, yes.
So there you go. You need to do a rehash of that. Bring all your stuff that you built over the years and do a video.
I was thinking of doing something like that actually, and also sort of like my recent armies that I'm painting that are the Minden miniature kind of line, Crantera line. But I was thinking about doing that or kind of with the new Musket and Tomahawk rules coming out. So I was going to put my table up and kind of do that too, because I'm pretty much gearing up to do a lot of bat reps and gaming for French Indian War pretty soon, both with sharp practice as well as the new rules of Musket and Tomahawks, which are going to be coming sooner than I thought. So actually they're going to be released pretty soon here. So yeah.
My cabin, that is, there you go. Now you built your cabin. All right. I think we caught up with all the questions again and statements everybody made. All right. So I've sort of started the transition into the next topic, I think.
Yeah, because we've talked about terrain, but we have a gaming topic now, but it relates to terrain.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try to make this as colorful as possible in the way I introduce this. Well, we've all had our arguments about line of sight at one point in our miniature game career, where somebody says he can definitely see him, and you're looking down, and you know that person must be looking 45 degrees off, because there's no way that guy can see the other guy. But traditionally speaking, true line of sight, or being able to look from the model's eye level, at least, or even using a laser pointer from the model and to hit your opponent, using a true line of sight way for miniature tabletop gaming is very common, I think, in tabletop games. It at times can be used by rules lawyers or various folks to make people upset, but it's actually not a bad way, I don't think, it's to play our games. But something that's actually I've noticed in tabletop games over the years that some companies are going with, or rules designers, and I don't really know the best way to describe it. What I would describe it as is standardized measurements for miniatures and terrain, a standardized environment where you have levels on the table that are understood within the rules. So you may have a miniature that I would describe as level 2, and it has a bush in front of the miniature that's level 1, and trees tend to be level 3, and a building might be a certain level. And so what that's used for in these sort of environments at times is that it's understood when a miniature that's size 2 is behind a shrub that's size 1, that it has cover but can still be hit. That might be one option within the rules. It may be known that a miniature that is size 2 being behind a tree that's size 3 may have a certain effect, and so it's all built into the rules, and you don't actually have to necessarily get behind the miniature and look at what the miniature is looking at and then ask your opponent to come around the table if they disagree and look as well. You don't have to necessarily do that. And so both can potentially provide different experiences. The latter, Infinity, uses the silhouette system, where they literally have a standardized series of silhouettes that are different sizes, and whether like a silhouette may be a piece of plastic or like maybe a piece of paper that's this size, and whether the miniature is this big or this big, if it's a silhouette of 2, then that's what it is in the rules. And so it doesn't matter what the creativity of the sculptor was there. It's a silhouette of 2, and the rule says this is how it behaves. And then the new Marvel game is actually using, as I understand it, I've not poured through the rules yet, but from what I've heard so far, they're using something very similar to this, where you have different levels and sizes. And it doesn't work just for being line of sight, but it also works for interacting with terrain. Like when you throw something, different terrain sizes that are standard sizes behave in, you have different abilities to, let's say, throw it if you're the Hulk. And so this is becoming more and more common. And so I thought it might be an interesting topic. So what do you guys think off the cuff of this sort of dichotomy? I don't think it's a total dichotomy. I just think that you could potentially have both at the same time. You could potentially have, certain levels where you use both, or certain certain instances where you use a little bit of both, but I do see a little bit of how one can be used instead of the other in certain circumstances.
Yeah, can I played lots of different games where you had true line of sight. You had true line of sight with levels built into it. It was like Dan Booman just popped in. So, hi, Dan. Better late than never, right? We've been talking about you. I hope you didn't feel too bad about it. Let's talk about you. So it's like we have BattleTech, which has the Hex game has wonky line of sight rules, which drive me nuts when using the Hex aspect of it, because you got to draw out line of sight through hexes, and if some type of terrain is it's like, oh, I'm going to draw my line of sight to you're over here and you're shooting at me, so I'm going to draw the line of sight the way I want to. It's going to go through this hex. I'm calling it that hex. Therefore, there's a building you can't see. Like, okay. But, if you take a laser pointer and draw it, it's like a laser pointer. There's nothing in between you, right? But the hex is there, and it's like, I pull what little hair I have left. It's, on my head out. But if we went on to where we're playing an open game, where like normal miniature games, you take a laser pointer, draw. I got the little ones that had, draws the line on the table, right? You just lay it, and it just, oh, nothing in between us, or that's going across this much terrain in between us. Oh, we got, how many inches is that? Oh, there's an inch and a half. Well, that counts as 2. Okay, type of thing. You got 2 wood hexes in between us, or 2 inches of woods. That's a -2 to you, +2 to hit me. Okay, no big deal. We don't even think about it, type of deal. So there's many different ways. I played War Machine and what's the other one? The beastie one.
Hordes.
That's it. Where you got different level of monsters. You have the humans. Let's say you got this little guy. That's your sorcerer, warlock, or whatever you want to call it. And this is like your big war beast, right? You can hide behind the war beast, right? You can't see me because the big guy's blocking. But if I'm over here, you can see me, right? Type of thing. So the bigger ones can block the little guys. Type of thing. You got 4
so it's
different.
built into the rules.
Yeah, they're
so
built in.
There'll be sizes. So whether or not you can physically see is not the question. It's whatever it's classified as.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could, now if you're on a hill, everything's thrown out the window because somebody on the hill can overlook everybody, type of deal.
Yeah.
So having the high ground is good, type of deal. So they got different types of rules built into the game system, so that can affect your true line of sight. But now if you have a big gargantuan, big monster that blocks everybody, no one can see around them.
And I guess some we could define it different ways. I'm kind of defining it that if you're not relying on your eye or a laser pointer, but you're relying on a rule to say whether it's blocked, then it's not true line of sight. Now, I don't know if that's correct. I'm using that as my sort of discussion point. And so I would say, like your example with words there, if you whether you put the model and you turn them and move them around, as long as the line goes through them and the rule says that size 3 is bigger than size 2, so you can't hit them, then it's not true line of sight. It's based on the rule mechanic. Which one do you like better, or do you have a favorite?
I prefer the mechanic where if you can see it, you can see it type deal. I prefer the true line of sight because it gives more of a true feeling. Because I've had games where, like say War Machine, where I had 2. I wasn't thinking, so instead of butting the buggers up, where they're base to base, I left a little crack in between them, and I just happened to have my spellcaster behind him, and somebody takes a laser pointer and goes, I can see him. Oh, type of deal. And it's like, and you're taking shots.
What do you think, Curtis? What are your thoughts on the topic?
Let me get back
to the
window here. I was playing one of the recent games I played, not recent, a couple of years ago, was a game, Napoleonic rules, called March Attack. And this was a set of rules where everything had a level. Everything, the elevations, trees, villages, units of men, they all had levels. And it was a simple way to judge distances without getting down on your knees and looking or using laser pointers or line levels or anything like that. It's an easy way to do it, and it works. But for some reason, it became very complicated for me to play it. I was playing solo because because there's so many end ifs and buts regarding this level can see over this, but only this far. And if this unit is close enough to this elevation, it will not be seen. There was a lot of stuff to look up and get used to.
Yeah.
But I think if I played the game long enough, a few times on a regular basis, it would all become second nature. I think it's a great way to speed play, avoid arguments, because I've seen more arguments coming from people that, use the model's eye view or real model eye view, where you get down and look. Is that big enough space to shoot through? And it depends on how vague the rules are, really, regarding that. Flames of War, its 4th edition kind of adopted a built-in rule mechanic for line of sight, where, if you're behind a level 1 wall, you can't see this and you can't see that unless it's this distance away from the wall, that kind of thing. I like that. I like where it's built into it.
The shadow effect of.
Yeah, when I played Games Workshop stuff back in the day, I don't know if it's still the case, but it was always model eye view. Everything was model eye view. In fact, they told you, get down and look. If the model can see it, you could use a line laser pointer for that. I used it all the time. But there was a lot of little arguments in there when we did that. And it seemed to take longer during games. Like, can I see that guy? Here, look, you look. You can't look from the other guy's perspective. You have to look from this guy's perspective. And then you always get that case. And I was fascinated, Palmer, when you mentioned the silhouettes. You always get that case before the silhouettes came around where this model's kneeling. All right, can I see him? He's behind a wall, but can't he be standing? At what point can you actually see him? And we just ignore the fact that he's kneeling and imagine him standing instead. And there was a lot of that going on, which I hated. It was annoying to go through that. You have to make a house rule that says, basically what silhouettes do in Infinity.
Yeah.
As far as what I prefer the mechanics built into the system where you don't have to look, and laser pointers are fun. I'm a big board gamer, so I like that kind of method where it's built into the system and everything has levels. Right. It can get complicated at times, but I think it's the best way to do it. But that's with me.
And a lot of things, the way you do it oftentimes matters, right? Is kind of what I think you're saying too, is that like you can make it not good if you actually go too crazy with it. It's what it sounds like. And I think that point you just made, because I didn't make that point with the silhouettes, but you did. I think that's one of the reasons they do the silhouettes too, is that you can have a model that's being shown that it's kneeling or crouching or doing something just for the sake of the sculpture, but it's not the intent that model is always at that height, that it's when it's walking, it's meant to be walking. And so the silhouette takes care of that. And I think the other thing that comes into it is are certain things better for tournament play. And I think sometimes the games that tend to go more towards tournament play try to standardize a bit more so they can take out some of that, not only make it faster, as you were saying, but also make it such that it's a bit more matter of fact as to what the situation is. And you don't have to actually have as much interpretation. And so I don't think any of us here, I from what I know of you guys, I don't think any of us here are actually big into tournaments, and so for myself, I know I'm not. But even to say that though, that doesn't mean I don't appreciate a game that actually has an elegance factor in the rule set, that allows for that. Because I think some things that are good for tournaments also are elegant in a way that you might enjoy even with your friends at home or even just as a solo player. And so I think that for me, like I always say, I think there's room for both. Like I actually quite like both. I mean, I actually am looking forward to learning the Marvel game and seeing how they do that and appreciating that. That's not to say I don't like my older games that I play or other games that I play that rely more on true line of sight. I think I can appreciate both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you look at I think 40K for that matter, since we were talking about it a little bit. It's basically a unit versus unit type firing type thing. It's like everybody from this unit will fire at, it's like, oh, you will, at the time there was a lot of the years there was no split fire. These guys can fire over here. Oh, I can't, these guys can't see here, so they got to fire over here. No, it was like, oh, everybody that's in that squad has to fire at that one target type thing. And if you can't see it, you can't see it. So, and it was one of those things where everybody is at the same height type of deal, even if you're squatting down, because who's going to be duck walking across the battlefield, on their, or walking across underneath? You got to think about them as all at the same eye level,
right?
As they're going across it's like, oh, they're going to run just like Napoleonics or anything of that nature. So,
and I think, oh, go ahead, Musty.
It's like it's like when we in BattleTech, there's built-in levels, as you like to say, in the game, where all vehicles are level 1, battle mechs are level 2s, aircraft when they're flying are all level 3 minimum type of thing. And so if you're standing on a level 2 hill, you're a battle mech, so you're equivalent to level 4. And if there's a level 2 woods in front of you that's on the ground level, they still, even if there's woods in between, they can still see you type thing. So they have things built into games like that make it, get rid of some of the ambiguous aspects of it. But there are still things that are built into the games, like you said, when it comes to, which drive me nuts when it comes to hex rules, is like if you're in a hex, you got to be in the, like, there's a hill here, it's a level 2 or level 1 hill, you have to be in the hex next to it to get the benefit of partial cover. But if you're a hex behind it, oh, you're out in the open. But it's like, I'm sorry, but there's,
even walking in water with BattleTech has that kind of rule thing where you step down a level, right? I noticed that from when I was playing, trying BattleTech out. And, I guess this is digressing a little bit, but when I mentioned the piece about the Hulk throwing a building, like, that's a certain level size, some games, and I don't know if I'm going to blame it on scale or the size of the conflict, but in some ways I'll try to make it easy in the sense that, you could play DBA where it's either a wood or it's not. And it's not even down to how big the wood is. I mean, you have a wood, it's a standard size, or it's not. And you have, you're not getting into the weeds, like on the levels and things like that. But it works though. Like, you don't want to get down into the weeds sometimes in certain games, with your terrain. But then I did a sort of a commentary once on how hard it is, I think, to make a superheroes game. And the reason I talked about that is I just felt that each miniature had so much capability, even if it's like a skirmish game, that to design a set of rules that work smoothly, that demonstrates so much capability and so much variation from miniature to miniature. They're all superheroes. One of them, is like, incredibly strong and tough, but then the other one can, like, through magnetism, make things around it move. And, and then, like, what it can do with that magnetism is just beyond infinity what you can think they can do. So the rules can be quite complicated if you need them to be, and for at least to make it feel believable. But you could standardize your terrain in such a way where you can have, let's say, power levels in a game where, like, some sort of effect you're trying to achieve, let's say it's magnetism. I have like a level 2 superhero and its ability with magnetism, but then I'm trying to lift a building, or a car, let's say it's easier, and it's metal. And but how big is the car? And so it's a level 3 car. Well, my level 2 superhero can't lift a level 3 metal car with its magnetism because it's built into the rules. But then if it was a level 4 or a 3, I could. And so sometimes I can see how doing this standardizing of objects within the game, whether it be terrain and then the way you interact with it, could be really useful. Like in certain types of games, it could be kind of interesting and fun in the way you do that. We're talking about it from line of sight perspective and size alone, but I could see how you're essentially interacting with terrain, and when you're talking about this, or there's an interaction here. I either go over it or I hit it, there's something where the terrain is interacting with what you're trying to do. You could take it a step further and almost say that some games you actually want to interact even in other ways, and by having that standardization, it helps. And so I think it is interesting. Like in the Marvel game, the way it works potentially with line of sight and the way it might work with other ways, I could see why they might have went that way.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do in the game is, like, let's say someone's behind a wall. They may necessarily, the miniature is like like we were talking about earlier, crouching behind the wall. They're going to be popping their head out, aim over the walls and shoot around or project. Let's say bolt action or something, and they got their Enfield and they're shooting. So the target mass, we're talking a small portion of their bodies over, but still they get hard cover, and it's like, oh, I can't see. One's you can't see me because I'm behind the wall, but no, you're shooting over the wall, so you are visible, but you're going to get some type of benefit from the terrain. The line of sight's there, but you're going to have some benefit from being behind a wall. You're behind hard cover, so you may only get hit. Let's say if you're rolling a 10-sided die, you're only hit on a 9 or a 10 versus a 6+ or something of that nature. So
sometimes the cover rules account for it, is what you're kind of saying, is that you can use other kinds of rules to account for certain effects.
Yes, definitely. So, it's definitely, if someone's in the woods, it's like 40K. If you're in the woods, you're going to get either an extra on your saving throw or harder to hit or something of that nature, whatever they're doing nowadays. I'm not sure. I haven't played 8th edition, so I'm not sure how they're dealing with it, but that type of deal. And here, like Clark said, anyone can remember the game where Jack, the officer, got smoked by the lucky bullet. He's hiding behind the rock, but, he stuck his head around one too many times, and Mr. Fritz there with his MG42 unloaded on his ass. So.
You're talking about cover and terrain effects on shooting and stuff, and it just popped in my head. One of the greatest rules I've seen was from Battle Group. And if you don't know that, it basically takes firing, and we're talking about small arms fire here, and it divides them into two types. There's area fire and there's aimed fire. And when you shoot, you pick one that your squad or team will utilize. And the effect is this: with area fire, you're not likely to do a lot in terms of casualties and killing people, but you're likely to suppress the target. Yes. You're more likely to pin them, put the willies in them, scare them. Whereas with aimed, it's easy to do. It's easier to hit the target, even if they're in, a lot of terrain, because you're after suppression.
Yeah.
It's called area fire.
Right.
I love using area fire. It's cool. and then there's aimed fire, where it's the reverse. You're after targeting. Cover plays a big role because you're trying to hit guys. You're trying to cause casualties and grief in that manner, not necessarily suppressing them. But it approaches it differently. Two different ways of firing and basically handling terrain and even line of sight. I think that's a fantastic mechanic.
It's an excellent mechanic in Battle Group, because I don't necessarily have to kill anybody of your entire army.
Yeah,
I can suppress your entire force, and you're forced, if you want to do anything, you got to force to pull chits to bring them back to being active so they can do something. And then it's like, oh, then you just broke a unit because they pulled too many chits and they broke them.
Yeah, and in a small battle, you don't want to be pulling chits.
Yes, definitely. So that's an excellent one where you have line of sight, and that's the game where you don't have line of sight. You got line of sight. You don't necessarily see them.
Yeah,
you got to do and that's where the game where, all right, see, you got line of sight. Okay, we do have line of sight to the target. Now roll to see if you even see the target to even shoot at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's multiple layers even within that game.
That's a great mechanic for that period, that time frame. I love it.
Yeah.
Area fire and aimed fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's another situation where you can build into the rules how that terrain is gonna essentially operate, or how what opportunity essentially you have to hit the target. Yeah,
yes.
That's interesting. Musket and Tomahawks also has the spotting mechanic, which is interesting too. I mean, even though you have line of sight and you can, like that miniature, you could draw with a laser pointer and hit the other miniature, there are a lot of conditions that can essentially make it such that that miniature cannot spot them. Like they, even though geometrically or like, you know, on the table, they can draw there, if they're going through area terrain, it can actually reduce their ability to spot them. It actually has a columns and a chart. You know, if there's rain, it actually reduces the ability to spot them, you know, by a level, you know. And so it actually has that kind of built in, which I always thought was very interesting for Musket and Tomahawks too. So yeah, there's so many different ways. I mean, it's kind of neat because there's just a lot of creativity, you know, with all these different rule writers and the way they actually try to attack the problem, right?
Yep. They're all trying to do the same thing, but they're doing it in all these different ways, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like in with the system that I designed, you know, because I designed some board or miniature games too, is that there is, just because we as the players have line of sight to the target doesn't mean the guy on the ground has line of sight. Because when you look at, you go out into the wild, everything isn't flat. Mm-hmm. You got little folds, little rolling hills and everything like that. So I like the mechanic of where just because they're out there doesn't mean you're going to see them. I like the whole mechanic of fog of war where you have to roll to see if you see a target. And then even if you've shot at the target before, they may have gone to ground or moved to a different location. You're going to have to make that spotting roll again. And that's where Battle Group does the same thing. Mm-hmm. They brought that into it. And I like that, where just because you, as the player, have line of sight doesn't necessarily mean that the guys on the ground are going to have it. So
yeah,
there is that mechanic where you got to do that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I thought it was an interesting topic. Actually, it's kind of went into a couple of different directions, which usually means that it was a good topic. I think in the comments, it's actually been a lot about too, you know, when we were talking about the competitive or just whether people are, you know, giving each other a hard time about true line of sight. Like, I think a lot of it, the discussion's been around how, like, gaming groups that are your friends, or, you know, where people are kind of behaving like gentlemen, you know, usually don't deal with that as much. I've been in both situations. I mean, I feel like I've been kind of lucky, even with folks that I haven't played with before. I mean, most of the time, folks I played have been pretty good about those things. Although I've run into a couple, you know, everybody has, right? Where, you know, where it's definitely more difficult.
Well, it's one of those things where I enjoy playing games with people, but I'm not going to let you have a free ride type thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a harder time as possible with a fun game.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, to allow somebody just to have a free ride just because we're just like, whatever, just do whatever you want. Like, well, I'm going to make sure you earn it. So that type of deal. So.
And there's something to be said for, at one point there, you know, you're being a gentleman and you're being, you know, with the game. And then there's also where you just you're both agreeing to a set of rules and you just want to be clear that we're both playing with the same set of rules.
I think the biggest thing in any type of game that you play, before you roll the first die of anything to figure out what's going on, just go through the terrain. It's like, what effect does this terrain have to you? What effect does this terrain do? You know, can I see if I'm up to this or this? You know, do a walk through the entire table to make sure everybody's on the same page as what the terrain effects are. And then usually there is no arguments about stuff afterwards, because it's like, we've talked about it. It's like, you're right. Okay, we're moving on. You know, let's keep moving type of deal. And that's part of, I think, half of the battle. And then when you get into you get really competitive players, like in a tournament style. It's like, if you ever played in a tournament, especially like a couple times playing a 40K tournament, is that you get some individuals that will, it's like, you look at it, go, all right, laser pointer, I can see these guys right here. I'm going to shoot these guys only. And then they'll turn around and then they want to shoot everybody they have at your entire group. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it's like, you can only see. No, I'm firing at everybody because it's like I can see them on the table. but you got to get down there and actually look.
No,
They
it's
don't wanna do
helicopter
it.
view that matters. Helicopter view matters.
Yes. So if I can see it, they can see it. I'm like, no. So then you end up with kind of an argument. They're like, oh, geez, like you end up by like, I think I'm going to go bang my head on the wall because I think you're kind of dense. But
And then the next thing Rusty says is, "Did you touch my miniature?"
game on.
Then it goes down a whole other direction.
I'm not walking back into that store ever again. Why? I twisted that poor bugger's head off. We had a slight disagreement. Definitely not in the mind intent to give my opponents a free ride. Yes, but if it's on the fence, yeah, it's like one of those things where sometimes it's better to. It's like just for the sake of getting the game continuing on instead of arguing over the minutia. Because I had a game where it was at my brother's house. We were playing a 40K, and I came over because we were going to go out of town the next day, and I was just going to spend the night at his house because we were leaving dark early. And they were playing a 40K game, and I think it was Blood Angels versus. Who's the psychers anyway,
I know who you mean.
Yeah,
I can't think of it.
Gray Knights. Yeah, it was Gray Knights. My brother has Gray Knights, and they got into an argument. It's like I can see all your guys behind that building right there, and my brother is like, you can see him. It's like, yeah, I can see it through that one little window. I can see all your guys. I'm like, I don't have any dogs in this game, but I don't know about this. So I was like, are you guys they were arguing. They were literally yelling at each other. Like, all right, step back. Let me just look at it. I got down there and I get the little laser pointing around and I kind of aimed around. It's like, from my opinion, 2 guys can see 1 guy that's behind that building. No, I can see everyone. Like, don't argue with me. I have
10 Space Marines in power armor are looking through a window with their guns.
Yeah. Like, no, you can see 2 guys. Your guys can see 2 guys. That's the most you can shoot.
10 8-foot super soldiers covered in larger armor.
Yeah.
are looking through one window.
It ain't happening. It's like finally it's like look at me. Listen to the words coming out of my mouth. Finally, he just like, fine. I was like, geez, dude, it's just a freaking game.
We always had when we got together at my house back in the day playing 40K and Necromunda and Warhammer, we'd have, I think there might have been 4 or 5 of us at a time. And we'd always have a couple games going on, but we were fortunate to always have an odd person, an odd player. And that person would be designated, I don't know what we called him, the God of War, something like that. And he's basically a referee. And whenever there was a situation that called for a third person perspective, we call him in and he'd make the judgment and everybody agreed to abide by that, no matter how it went. Like, can this unit see them? All right, let's bring him over. He looks, makes a judgment, we move on. And it's all good. It always worked out for us. That was a fortunate thing. But I'll tell you, when it was just me and my nephew playing, forget it. We were fighting all the time over things like line of sight. You can't see them. Only half of them can shoot. Where it's down to player perspective and interpretation. Those were dreadful moments. But when we had the odd guy, no problem. Good stuff.
That's the thing is if you have somebody that has the referee, the game master, whoever it may be, it's like, if you have a third party there that's like running the scenario or whatever it may be, or if you a tournament organizer for that matter, to get somebody to come over and say, hey, could you look at this? Because I think it's this way. He's got a 180 degree difference look at it. Let's just come in here and look at it. You figure it out for us and you make the decision. And then third party comes over and like I said, you have that one game where like, I'm not taking your, it's like, excuse me, I have nothing in this. Just play your game, all right? Dang.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and the Rogue Trader rules for 40K originally had a game master, and a lot of the early Warhammer Fantasy stuff did. And so it seems like something. I don't know. That's my dog. That's my dog. I'm sorry. 1 second. Actually, I just have to mute my mic one moment.
All right. Palmer takes care of that and whips those dogs. It's the lash.
It's not actually a dog.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lassie.
He's breeding
man.
lichens in his basement. There he is. Come on, Palmer.
So that was my little cat basically cornering my big standard schnauzer. And not even cornering in a corner, but just basically preventing him from going up the stairs. And he's such a chicken with fur that he was basically howling because while this cat is just sitting there like, and he's like howling. So sorry about that. That was totally uncontrollable.
File emery board on the nails, right?
Unbelievable. So yes, so the game master, it's funny. I think that's something we don't see as much anymore in rule sets because you need an extra person. If they say in the rules that there should be a game master, then that means you actually need somebody that's an oddball. But in the past, when we had more gaming groups and things where you tend to have that, it wasn't an issue. But now to say that you need it or that there should be it, you just don't see it anymore because they don't want to say you have to have it, right? Now, not necessarily with role playing, but I'm talking about with tabletop gaming. But that's interesting.
Well, you know what they do today to replace the game master. I see this a lot. They say, when in doubt, just roll the dice and let that determine the situation. Who's right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that. It's not like, oh, refer to the referee or the game master. It's no, just roll the dice and see who's right.
Mm-hmm.
Highest roll is right in that situation. You see that a lot.
Trial by dice combat. That's what it is.
Yep.
It's very medieval.
Oh, Nice Pantry says he has a cat that scares dogs too.
I think dogs are naturally scared of cats. I think just seems to be that way. My God,
I think that shows that they're smart.
Yeah.
Cats can be scary sometimes.
Intimidating.
Yep.
Very intimidating.
My two cats are absolutely not intimidating, so I don't know what he's doing that for.
Is your dog? Is it a rescue dog or?
Yes, yeah, for the most part, yeah, and it's a standard schnauzer, and it was just a situation where the person couldn't handle. They had health issues and couldn't handle having a dog anymore, so we kind of rescued him. Yeah, in the sense that we kind of took the dog on, just in that sense, but doesn't really have any major health issues or anything like that.
So there's something along the line. It's like the traumatized is probably as a pup or something.
No, he's okay. He's okay. He just, he's not the first dog that I've had that's been a little wary around a cat that gets in his way, his or her way.
Well, it just shows cats are abusive.
It's a mental game.
Yes.
Right? They don't even have to lift a paw.
It's like dogs are all pack animals. It's like if I had some doggy backup, I'd be more brave. But no, it's like I finally got the update on this. It's like I've got Scott's, his cat scares the dogs too. Tom and Jerry lied to me as a child. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
When
it also depends on the dog. There are some dogs that don't care. They'll have that cat for lunch. It really just depends.
It's like, I love cat.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a tail. Like, no more cat.
Skarner says when one of your rules is to dice off, the rule set has a few gaping holes in it. Interesting.
Yeah, that's to some extent. Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, it's if you have to make up rules as you go, or for interpretation. That brings up an interesting thing. Is that not enough rule set anymore because maybe it's the space to be in the rule set is that they don't have enough explanation about their own rules.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here's this rule, here's an example. Here's this rule, here's an example. You know, you don't see that anymore.
Less so, yeah.
Yeah.
But then even the most detailed rule sets, I mean, you can even, and I if you look at the Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition rulebook, which I always quote as being the one that's just gigantic, you know, it's like the largest rulebook I have, I think, for tabletop gaming. Most of the early Warhammer sets always said, though, that there are always circumstances in a simulation of a tabletop game that you can't account for. And so sometimes to think that the rules are going to cover every absolute situation is really untrue, right? I mean, to a certain degree, that it does at times require a gentlemanly way to deal with a situation that's not covered in the rule. I mean, however, I don't disagree with Garnier. I mean, like sometimes you can actually have, or Plastic Crack Gaming, sometimes you can have a situation where the rules themselves have just way too many holes, and like you're left as the player to try to make up for the game, the lack of the game design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are times I felt like when I was playing 40K on a regular basis that there was enough holes in the rule set that you could drive a Mack truck through. So, and like individuals look at the game as like, well, there's enough holes in here that there's enough ambiguity that I can actually make life tough for people. So that's part of the problem, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, particularly the more variability you have too. I mean, like how hot is a plasma gun really? You know, it's like you get to the point.
It's like that old rule. It gets hot. I imagine if you fire it too much, it's going to get hot.
Can I really walk by those drapes with that gun?
Well, what's that bacon smell? I'm saying, oh man, the orc picked up the gun again. Yeah, it's like I remember when I first started playing Rogue Trader 40K, and it's like when we were talking about orcs, and it's like these guys look like pigs, and then we realized after playing a game against Space Marines, it's like, yep, it smelled like cooked bacon at you. Let's say tabletop games have lots of weird situations that come up. Yeah, that's the thing is like even as a guy that's wrote my own rules, you know, I have like 5-6 different rule sets I've written over the years. You can't think of every situation. Somebody's going to come up with a situation that's going to break it. Mm-hmm. And that's where if you have enough play testers that try to break the rules for you, that's better than you say, oh, we came up with this situation. I never thought about that. Okay. Then you got to think about how I'm going to deal with that circumstance. Subsections, sub rule, blah, blah. If this pops up, then do this type thing. But
right.
Until that happens, you don't know how to cover it. And like when we get into the line of sight and how the terrain affects, and it's like we were talking about, I was going to say earlier, like BattleTech, where you got a drink there? Yeah.
I've already poured twice to deal with your guys' BattleTech stuff.
I'm still in the first
I gotta
one.
make this last for a little while.
Just crack open an IV. You'd be good. It's like when you're playing it with just regular gaming table, but without the hexes, you could have a mech that's like, here's the edge of the building right here. Mm-hmm. And the mech is standing here. So you only see, like typically when you think of partial cover in the game, they think it's partial cover of the legs. But in open terrain, it could be partial cover of half the mech. So mm-hmm. you can only hit one side of the mech type thing, where there's more ambiguity that goes in with the game that, you know, the circumstances may allow you to play that way. So,
mm-hmm. You know, StreamYard just added green screens to be able to do green screen work on StreamYard. But I also hear the next thing they're doing is they're adding a breathalyzer to it as well. Once our show, they actually kind of caught our show, and actually they're going to be making it such that they're going to shut this thing off if I have too much.
Breathalyzer. I got it, Palmer.
Right through the microphone.
Every time you speak. Takes a little measurement.
Okay, cut him off.
Well, there's a reason why this our podcast here that we do, or definitely not for under 21, right?
Yeah, needless to say, this is not a video for children, but
I hope not.
but yeah, you have too many drinks because of BattleTech comments, and all of a sudden they're going to cut you off, and your screen's just going to freeze, and you're going to be like,
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, they got Palmer again. We'll see him for another 3 months. They got him.
That's right. He's locked down for 3 months.
Oh, it's terrible. Gotta watch your step.
Here we go.
It's got to crack one open.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, I think we're rambling off now. We got off the reservation.
We've definitely given our two main topics attention.
And then some. The gulpy.
Well, it's definitely been great to have you back on the show, Curtis.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I love it. You guys got such great topics. I love it. Makes me think.
Yep,
it's hard to think of them sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually,
you guys to see what goes on before the show. It's like, well, the first topic that we had was from 3 weeks ago. That one, we popped that one up 3 weeks ago. The second topic was what night did we?
A couple nights ago, yeah.
Was it Monday?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Monday night. We said, we need a second topic. And you were like, what was the first topic?
That was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that when you do a show with that's deliberate about having a topic, and you do it for three, you're on your third year, and you're going now after this year into your fourth year, you have covered a lot, sometimes by that point. Even if you do 12 shows with 2 topics, that's 24 topics a year. And so when you think about it, when you're on your third year, I've had too many musty drinks tonight, but I know it's 48 is 2 years, and then what is it, 56? No, 72? I don't know. Whatever it is, it's a lot of topics eventually, right?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of topics over the years.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we come back and actually covered the same topic again and not realize that we did it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That can happen. That could potentially happen. I don't think we've done it yet. I think we've come close with topics that are related to each other. But
do you post in your description the topics for each one?
We've started to do that, and that's probably good that we say that on the show. Is that we've started
in the title.
Well, the hard thing is getting it all in the title and to be able to put season 3 episode. But you're right. I've thought about that because you're only given so much room. If we write the Musty Wargamers season 3 episode 8, there's no room for topics. But we definitely have been putting it in the description. And so if anybody looks at the description of the video, we've tried to say them now in our announcement videos when we talk about the upcoming show, what the topics are. When we do a video announcing it too. What we could do though is we could potentially put it on the thumbnail when we add for the show. Like we could say, like we have our thumbnail that shows the picture of the Musty Wargamers. We could put like in there, like the actual topics on the thumbnail. It's something we could potentially do. But
you just gotta make the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Dwayne here, he has an interesting topic here.
What's that?
It's on the screen here. You could talk about the commercialization of wargaming destroying up-and-coming generations' creativity.
Wow.
That might be a topic that we could bring an individual that just brought up the topic and bring him on the show.
Mm-hmm. So it's, can you highlight that comment? Is it up yet?
Yeah, it's up on the screen right now.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm looking at the other screen, or the YouTube screen. Okay, talk about the commercialization of wargaming, destroying up-and-coming generations' creativity. Specifically within wargaming, creativity within wargaming, I'm assuming, or just all creativity? So. That would be interesting.
That's very interesting because I've actually talked about that topic. many times, and it's a good one. It's a really good one.
Next
And-
time, discuss the infantryman's plight in the BattleTech universe. I'm just a small crunchy and a big giant. I'm a nail and everybody's hammers. Let's see, PBIs. What's PBI or PBL?
Poor bloody infantry.
Oh yeah, probably.
Okay. Crunchies.
Crunchies in BattleTech, the infantry. Crunchies.
Crunchies.
Come here, Walter. Get down.
Good.
Funko Pop Space Marines. That would be a good topic.
Yeah. Yeah, we got, I think we have a possible, we got Poo Bloody Infantry.
You know what you could do in the community on Facebook, put up one of those polls of topics of discussion, just to be able to draw from, and as a pool of extra thoughts from the community, and they could add their own, so it could be this huge list that people
that
can
would be
vote
good
on. And
if they can add their own, that would be great, because that would be the point, is if we could say like add your own topics that you'd like to see. That would be good. Because the Facebook page has been great. I mean, like for the show, I mean, like in the sense that people are interactive and stuff, and I bet you we'd get a lot for that. We've never really ended up with a shortage, but it does get difficult at times to know what people want to hear, and so I think that would be good.
Musty Wargamers Facebook page, folks. Great little community. Yeah,
I'm writing that one down.
Poll.
Oh, not Poo Bloody Infantry?
No. No, the commercialization of wargame destroying upcoming generations' creativity.
Yep.
I do. Now, if I could just write. The only problem is if I can read my own handwriting.
Have you had a second pour on your Musty drink yet?
I was going to say.
I'm still on the first one. There's just a wee bit left there.
Okay, you're far enough in that it's affected your hand coordination there.
Cut him off. That's it.
My handwriting. I make a great doctor. My scripts, as you probably in a pharmacy known that doctor scripts suck. So yeah, so I think we got one topic for the next time already. So
we'll definitely have to make sure that Plastic Crack Gaming can join us for that topic, because it sounds like he's got an opinion on that.
Yes, I think we'll see if we can get him in here the next time when we do it over in your channel. So
yeah, that sounds good.
And that's in 2 weeks.
He'll send it to you.
Okay.
But he could be introducing the topic, so it won't even be an issue.
Yeah.
Square bases versus round. Oh gosh, that'll create. We'll have as many likes as dislikes on that video.
That's an interesting. Is it creativity of nothing but round bases, or can you put a square peg in a round hole?
Well, you know what the answer is. It's the hex base, right, or the octagon base.
Yeah, that's the compromise between the
That's
two.
right.
You remember when you guys might remember when Games Workshop, a lot of the Rogue Trader miniatures came with hexagonal bases. You remember that?
Well, I do know of it. It's not trying to think. At the time when I had gotten early 40K miniatures, I still think they were square. I don't think they were octagon, but I do know there was a time when they did. Yeah.
I remember them. Yep.
Yeah, I used to have. It's like some of my demon miniatures were on hexagonal bases, and I guess 10 years ago, I pulled a bunch of them off their hex bases and put them onto either round bases. And I had a whole bunch of my fantasy demons that I started cracking the square bases off and put them on round bases, little 25s, before they decided to make everything 32 or something like that now. But, or 40s, 32s and 40s. It's like, I swear, it's like nowadays when you're playing 40K, if you don't have a base for each miniature this big, it's like I was over at the. I guess it's been a little while. It was last summer. We were over at the Warhammer store playing some Age of Sigmar, and I brought my fantasy miniatures. They're all on square bases, right? And the guy that runs the store, and he's like, "What? What? Well, that's what they came with. That's what they're so small. Aren't they supposed to be in like bigger square base?" Like, no, these are from 25 plus years ago. And it's like, well, I didn't think the miniatures. I wasn't sure if those were actual Games Workshop, the other Games Workshop. But
and you probably were thinking you haven't been here very long, right? Because Age of Sigmar, even though it's been out for a while now, it's not been out forever. I mean, like it's not been that long since people were playing 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Yeah, I mean, and those were on square bases, right?
Yes, everything was square.
So, like when you have the guy running the store looking at you like he's never seen a square base, you're probably thinking, when did you get here?
How long have you been in this hobby, pal?
I mean, we're not talking about the late 80s here. We're talking,
we're talking 5-10 years ago type deal.
All right. Well, it has been fun as usual.
Yeah, I think we'll call it here tonight. It's been very fun having you on, Curtis.
I enjoyed it. I did. Glad to be here.
To go check on my petrified dog.
Hiding at the top of the stairs. Please, master, save me.
How long did it take me to react to that? Because I have the headphones on where you guys just hear the microphone, right?
A few seconds. You were
okay, it wasn't long. I was like, that's me.
I was like, sounded like a siren going off. Oh, it's like I couldn't tell if it was a screeching banshee, a child, or some type of howling pet. So
it was
Dan made a good point here. I never rebase anything. I see people that do that all the time. It's like, yeah, the newest thing, you got to put everything on bigger bases. Nope. They came original. It's like my 40K stuff came in originally. My Terminators were on 25 mil bases. They're staying on 25 mil bases. Yes,
I've never rebased anything either in my whole career. Not to say that I would never do it, but I've never have.
Well, the only thing I've ever rebased was I had those demons that were on hex bases. I moved them over to round bases because I wanted them in 40K. Mm-hmm. People were like, why are they on hex? I was like, that's the way they came. But all right. Well, I guess we'll hang off right here. Next time we're going to be on Palmer's channel in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. We're going to have some type of topic. So
we might even do the poll. If you guys want to go over to the Facebook page on Musty Wargamers, then you can potentially determine the next topic.
And maybe we'll start what we should do is start a thing and just keep a what?
I agree.
Start something and have people just comment and add topics, and we'll just start pulling topics from them.
Yeah, and the poll would work too, but then they can use the comment function as well. Like,
the only thing with the polls I've found out is that once you post it, all right, and people can keep adding and it could keep going, but the problem with it I've noticed is that once you post it, you can't edit it. So if you cover a topic, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
From the poll. So it's always there. So you got to kind of like, well, we got 100 topics now. I think we should start over now. Write them down on a sheet of paper or something. But it's a good way to get some ideas anyway.
I think it just, instead of having a poll, we just do it as a topic. It's like add your suggestions for show topics and to just write them down below as a comment, and we'll just
that's true.
Yeah, and pin
it to the top.
Yeah, that would work.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's what we'll do.
I'll post some for you. I got some ideas.
Okay,
great. That'd be good.
We can go with that. All right. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. And if you want to talk to us, we're over the Musty Wargamers channel over on the Facebook page. You can get a hold of us there too. So we'll see you in 2 weeks with some type of topic.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody, for showing
Talk
up.
to y'all later.
Take care,
Take care.
folks. See ya.
Delayed response.